It cost $20,000 to make this shed safe for chemical storage. It has an acid-proof floor specially designed to prevent leakage, chain-link fencing and washing facilities for staff. 3 fitted-out vehicles are being used to collect some of the most deadly poisons known to man. Chemicals like illegal pesticides, paints, acids and drugs, which have been stored in Newcastle homes. First aid equipment, including breathing apparatus, is proof of how dangerous the chemicals are considered. Over the coming months, the collection will spread to Lake Macquarie and the Northern Hunter.
I'm concerned that if poisons sit in your shed for too long or under your houses, then your kiddies might get into it and drink it. There's been cases where children have drank pesticides, become poisoned, and also adults.
It's easy to see why when chemicals are stored in household containers like soft drink bottles or Vegemite jars. Up to 11 tonnes of chemicals will be stored here before being incinerated, recycled or shipped overseas for disposal.
The landscape site on the shores of Lake Macquarie is to be called Rafferty's Resort. Unlike more familiar coastal getaways, this one will be a bushland retreat for the whole family. Developer Alan Ray says the location was idyllic.
The natural environment that's here appealed to us very much, and the lack of residential development surrounding it was one of the things that attracted us to this particular site.
The resort is a unique development offering individual ownership of lakefront cottages. In Stage 1, 19 dwellings valued at over $200,000 each will be purchased by owners who in effect become shareholders in the resort, able to enjoy the cottages themselves for a limited time each year.
Investors can actually purchase a property here, and unlike having a weekend one-off situation where they give it to the local estate agent to let out, we will manage that property for them.
Investors can also lease the cottage back to the resort for a bank-guaranteed return. Mr Ray expects the first stage of the resort, including tennis courts, barbecues and a boat ramp, to be completed within the year.
It's a familiar sight from Taree in the north, Cessnock in the west and the Hawkesbury in the south. Kilometre after kilometre of drought-stricken countryside. Dungog dairy farmer Donnie Middlebrook has seen good and bad times in his 60 years on the land. But with no rain in the last 6 months, he's facing disaster.
See there, Peter, like the way the dust is flying, there's just nothing there that a cow could possibly pick up.
There's more dust than grass.
Yeah, well, how'd you like to be a cow?
The Byram Keech Index, an official guide to rainfall in New South Wales, shows the Hunter is the driest area in the state. It estimates 200 millimetres of rain is needed to break the drought.
It's come in very hot summer and has been very dry, so it's come in very quick, very hard, so it's really starting to bite at the moment.
According to the Department of Agriculture, farmers must now make some difficult financial decisions. Either sell their stock or go into debt to keep their animals alive. Don Middlebrook began feeding hay 2 weeks ago, and while his cattle are surviving, they're obviously hungry.
Because the only thing they've got is water, and some of the dams are half dry and it wouldn't be very good quality water. So without this hay, I think that I'd run into big trouble pretty quick.
The Singleton and Maitland sale yards have noted a 50 to 100% rise in cattle put to market. Truckies are also flat out shifting stock for adjustment to greener pastures outside the area. The Williams and Allen rivers have stopped flowing. If the hot weather continues, irrigation holes will dry up and farmers will face a massive heightening of the crisis. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
While the rest of the Knights have been hard at work during the pre-season, Steve Fulmer's tradesman-like skills have been confined to the clubhouse. It's been more than 6 months since he last laced on a boot, but he's not about to rush back into action this weekend.
I don't think I'll play this weekend just because, give it another extra week and I think it'll probably be around about 95% fit then, and another week for my fitness has probably helped too.
Fulmer was the pick of a top Knights side last year and was rewarded with a spot in the Kangaroo train-on squad. Still, even a single off-season is a long time in football, and he now finds himself struggling to regain his first-grade spot at the expense of an in-form Steve Linnane.
Steve's a great player. He's been playing in Sydney longer than I have, so he's got more experience, but no, he's going well there. He's holding up the fort well. I can't see any reason why he shouldn't stay there just because I'm coming back. I've got to work my way through the ranks again, and that's the way it is in football, I suppose.
He's all but conceded round one of the battle and expects to start in reserve grade against Cronulla next week. After that, the war of the little men will be on in earnest. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
A giant plume of smoke hung over Teralba when tons of tyres and rubber conveyor belts in the B&S scrap metal yard went up in flames. 7 units were called to the blaze, but as the fire spread, more backup was needed.
Take it 255, reply. Yes, are you available to respond to Racecourse Road, Teralba, over? Responding, over.
The concern we have at the moment is these tyres. The problem we have is access to the area. It's heavily loaded with rubbish and we're having a great deal of trouble getting four-wheel drive vehicles in there.
Firefighters battled the flames for 13.5 hours using special foam to douse the rubber. While investigators are not sure what started the blaze, B&S management believes sparks from an oxy welder set it off. This morning the fire was still smouldering. Its estimated damage is in the tens of thousands of dollars. But nearby residents say it could have been avoided. Ernie Johnson and John Kilby have been complaining to Lake Macquarie Council for a year. They say nearby wreckers' yards are also a dangerous fire trap.
What's your feeling about the speed in which Council's been acting on this?
Very poor. Very, very poor. The way the tyres are still being carted in there by the loads, well, it's just as if nothing's happening at all.
John Kilby says Council has made 2 inspections of the Racecourse Road area. He's hoping this blaze may finally spark some action. It's called the Picnic for the Aged, and while the senior cits may not be out in the great outdoors, they're certainly enjoying a good wholesome lunch. 10 local Lions clubs invited people from retirement homes in their areas for the annual treat. This year at Broadmeadow Police Citizens Youth Club. Special guest was 105-year-old Kate Midgley, who'd come in from St Joseph's Convalescent Home at Sandgate. Volunteers not only transported the guests, they also served them. No doubt a special thrill for this young waiter.
When Peter Ramage graduated from Newcastle University's School of Engineering in 1978, he already had one award under his belt. His results from his double degree earned him the prestigious University Medal. But Peter wasn't prepared to rest on his laurels, and for him the next challenge lay overseas.
I went to the States initially, or to North America initially, on the advice of the professors here at the University of Newcastle, who I had got to know fairly well. They advised me if I wanted to do graduate work to go to North America.
During his stint in Canada and the United States, Peter's been involved in producing leading science journals, undertaken extensive research at Harvard and Toronto universities, been an invited speaker at conferences through Europe, and most recently at an associate professorship at Princeton University. A remarkable record, but one Peter insists he owes to his early days on the Shortland campus.
it was a very good start. I'm very pleased with the start I got here, and one of the things I'd like to do that I'm back this time is thank the professors that taught me when I was here.
The Convocation Medal is awarded annually to a graduate of the uni with the most outstanding record of professional excellence. The names of its previous winners have earned it high regard in learning circles. It will be presented to Peter at a dinner on Friday night, and that, he says, will be his most impressive achievement yet. Whenever times are tough, the Newcastle City Mission is there. The organisation started in Wickham in 1940, moving to its present premises at Hamilton 28 years later. From its beginnings as a soup kitchen, the mission last year helped 3,500 families in crisis from the Hunter region. Almost $73,000 in immediate aid was handed out. As well as looking after the area's homeless, the mission provides meals for those short of cash. Last year, 11,000 midday meals were prepared in the mission's kitchen. Employment programs are also provided, as well as clothing, furniture and a listening ear. Over the years, there's been a change in the type of person seeking assistance.
Often we get people that are working and on a low income and just unable to cope. They can manage while everything's going fine, but it only takes a broken washing machine or even a broken window at times just to put their budget way out of line.
The mission relies heavily on donations for its survival. While the recession has tightened the purse strings, the City Mission will continue to function, as there'll always be a need somewhere in the community.
With the Lord's help and the generosity of the people of Newcastle, we'll expand to meet the need as it arises. We'll change what we're doing to try and help as many people as we can who are unable to help themselves.
Dr Hai Sui Yu is a finalist in what's considered the highest award for young researchers in civil engineering. The Melosh Medal invites thousands of new PhDs from all over the world to submit their theses. Dr Yu's specialty is finite element analysis, which sounds complicated, but actually comes down to predicting the load capacity of man-made structures like bridges, buildings and tunnels.
So now I'll show you what the application of the approach I have put forward to analyzing the square tunnel. This picture shows the final shape of the tunnel after it collapsed. The final picture shows you the highly stressed area in the material surrounding the tunnel, which caused the problem.
Until now, maximum load was deduced using a mixture of calculation and past experience. Dr Yu's technique guarantees an accurate result. His position at Newcastle University was somewhat of a coup. He was offered several positions, including a fellowship at Cambridge University in the UK, but chose Newcastle because of the international reputation of its civil engineering department. Dr Yu flies to the US later this month for the final judging for the Melosh Medal.
Cronulla nearly scored early with a little chip kick into the in goal, but it was gathered in by centre Robbie McCormack. Going into a fierce nor'easter, the Knights captain Michael Hagan put his team on the map. Cronulla came back with a gift 2 points after Steve Linnane kicked out on the full from the in goal, but then Peter Johnston and Paul Marquette combined for number 2. 12-4 at half-time and 6 minutes after the resumption, St George reject Steve Linnane chalked up his second try of the afternoon. Immediately another new boy, Mike McLean, sent away John Schuster. Back came the Sharks through Miller and Enningshausen. But the Knights rallied with McCormick making Gordon's try, and it was 24-8. To cap off a fabulous first-grade debut, John Schuster scored his second just before the end.
Hundreds of people braved the heat and dust, making their way around the Stations of the Cross under what became a sea of umbrellas. At each stop, the crowd joined in gospel readings, remembering the death and the resurrection of Christ. The event has been an integral part of Easter celebrations in the region for 24 years, and according to the man who began the tradition, the spirit at the gathering gets stronger each year.
The faith and reverence that's shown by the people, the silence when they're walking around, the reverence has to be seen, have to be there to feel the reverence of the people.
Secretary-manager of the Beresfield Club, Darren Mulligan, was standing here in the main foyer when he was confronted by 3 armed men. One was holding a gun to his wife's head.
They asked me to drop to the floor. When I did that, they just put a gun to the back of my head and said, if you move, we'll shoot you.
While one gunman watched over Darren, another went into the main bar and herded 8 other people into the foyer. They too were forced to the floor, all the while being threatened with their lives.
They said to me, if you move, we'll blow your brains out.
After demanding the keys to the safe, the gunman forced the frightened staff inside the strong room, locking the steel door. The men then fled the building, escaping with tens of thousands of dollars from this safe box. Mr. Mulligan called for help from a phone inside the safe. If that security measure hadn't been there, the result could have been far worse.
The safe is only about 8 by 5 and there's no ventilation there at all. So the cleaners weren't due to arrive till about 4 or 5 in the morning. With 10 people in a small area like that, they would have used up all their oxygen in no time.
Police are concerned by the detailed planning of this robbery. The gunmen obviously knew the layout of the club well and were aware the weekend's takings would still be on the premises. But the most frightening aspect is that not once did the gunmen panic, and police believe it's a job done by professionals.
The way they've gone about it, they've been very cool, very calm, very collected. They haven't used any more conversation than required to get what they did. The staff are all threatened with violence, and they knew exactly what they wanted and where they were.
Descriptions of the men are sketchy. All were wearing brand new navy overalls, white sand shoes, gloves and black ski masks. The head of the gang was around 40 years of age, around 1.6 metres tall and weighed around 100 kilograms. According to witnesses, he was unfit and out of breath. The other was in his 20s, of thin build and around 1.8 metres tall. Police have no description of the third man. Jodie McKay, NBN News. John Bennett has been part of the Cleanaway Advisory Panel since it was formed 12 months ago, but today he resigned, saying he refuses to be part of window dressing for a publicly unacceptable proposal.
I think that certainly people matter one heck of a lot more than technology.
Mr Bennett says he has it on good advice that Kooragang Island is the preferred site for the liquid waste facility, but Cleanaway today refused to confirm or deny that, saying that the recommended site would be revealed at a council briefing session tomorrow night, along with details of the treatment and recycling process. 6 months ago, Cleanaway commissioned the Geography Department of Newcastle University to carry out the site study. If Kooragang is the preferred site, Cleanaway could once again have a fight on its hands, this time with residents of Stockton. Jodie McKay, NBN News.